So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about telepathy and nonverbal communication, my experience with it, and also what's happening in terms of Earth's vibration and what we can see as we move into what is sometimes termed the fourth or the fifth dimensional reality that is happening, this great awakening that's happening right now, and really what that feels like in terms of our interpersonal connections and our experience. So I've experienced telepathic communication from a young child, and a little bit about how that worked for me, or my story. When I was very, very young, between the ages of about, I'd say like 2 years old and 7 or 8, I used to have these really unique experiences with these beings of, essentially like beings of light is the best way I could describe them. But they were non-physical in form, although they did have, a type of a form, if that makes sense. It was sort of like the way that you could think of like a shadow, only these particular beings weren't shadowy in form, they were light in form. And they used to come and visit me often at night because, again, they would visit me when I was alone and there was nobody else around. And part of what I now understand that they were trying to teach me was the history of Earth, and also what expanded consciousness was. And when I was very, very young, I was very confused by this because, of course, you're a little kid and you're just new to having a body, and you're actually quite new to the experience of Earth as well. And so for me, I wasn't scared, but I was quite overwhelmed, and I didn't really understand what I was to do with all of the information they were giving me. And it was, quite a lot, because it was almost every night that they would come and visit me. And one of the things that was really strange about thinking about these experiences now was they were able to show me expanded consciousness without the lens of the human brain, if that makes sense. So I could understand eternity or infinity, and I could feel that. But when they would show me this, it wasn't me in a body. I couldn't do it in a body. So it's sort of like they would pull me out of my body, and then I felt this expansion. It was really strange. And again, all of this happened telepathically because you can't communicate this verbally. These kind of concepts cannot be communicated verbally. So again, it was very, very interesting for me when I was a young person. I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't really understand it. And the other thing too is they would speak in a language that I didn't understand. So they would speak amongst each other, but it wasn't a language I knew, and I found it pretty confusing too when I went through these experiences. And now looking back, so for many, many years, I didn't think about those experiences because, again, it was when I was a small child. And as you get older, and as you get into junior high and high school and adult, it's not really useful to even remember these experiences or talk about them because they don't make sense in real life or Earth life. So that would have been my first experience with telepathy or nonverbal communication. And again, experiencing it very frequently over the years when I was a young child. And so that, when people started talking about, the end of the Mayan calendar and the New Age and all of these different concepts, I started to think about it. I'm like, oh wow, that's just what I experienced when I was a kid for so many years. This is really cool that people are actually talking about these things now, because it was confirmation for me that what I experienced was accurate, and other people have gone through similar experiences as well. And again, it was just confirmation for me. So a little bit about how this is going to work in terms of what's going on right now on planet Earth. So we are collectively raising our vibrational frequency. And that was also something that was shown to me by these kind of like light beings when I was younger as well, that there would be this shift and basically like a division, right, in terms of the consciousness of planet Earth. And I know myself, especially in the last, probably 5 years specifically, I have had less and less desire to use verbal language, so the spoken word. I almost feel overwhelmed or irritated when there's too many people talking and I cannot focus on all of these different conversations. And also, I find a lot of the dialogue fairly useless. So there's a lot of verbal communication that's just kind of superfluous. Like it doesn't have any meaning to it. A lot of it is ego-based. So a lot of times when we're using this verbal communication, it's just the ego chattering through the identity to try to make itself feel some kind of a way. And so if it's an ego-based conversation, I'm not interested in it. It just doesn't yield any catalyst for learning for me, and it's not forward moving. So this is something I've really noticed for me in the last 5 years. If I'm going to have a direct verbal dialogue, I need it to mean something or be directive. Like it needs to add up to something that's happening, or it needs to be really real. Really, it has to have a lot of depth to it. If it's just talking to talk and there's no other reason for it, I have to bow out of that. It just doesn't, it exhausts my energy centers and it just feels like there's no reason for it. And this is part, again, of the authenticity that you will start to feel as you move into the 4th and 5th dimensions. Because again, those dimensional realities are more about energy than they are about physical reality. So it's more of an energy exchange. And as we move into these higher dimensions, everything is authentic and everything is honest, because energy is honest. Like either it needs to exchange something or it doesn't. There's no purpose for energy to do something that is useless to it, right? And so this is how telepathy also ties into this, because the communication, when we are communicating telepathically, we cannot hide, we cannot manipulate. There is no room for manipulation. There's no room for secrets or hidden things, because it's all there. Like you are communicating from one mind and essence to another mind and essence, and you are sharing everything there is, right? Which is beautiful, because again, it's a very undistorted, very, very authentic and truthful way of communicating. And in my opinion, the best way of communicating. But it's, scary to some people because you can't hide anything. You can't hide your feelings. You can't hide how, what your intentions are, what you're there to do. And that is another aspect of, as you kind of traverse the landscape of your ascension or your spiritual ascension, your awakening, you'll be able to telepathically also read people. So you'll be able to read their intentions like a book. And that's, first of all, a little bit scary as well, because people can't hide anything from you. You see beyond their front, essentially. And it's a good thing. And it happens again when you have nothing to hide, when you've completely cleared out your karma and your auric field is very pure, then this is the point as well where you don't mind sharing everything, because everything that you are and everything that you emanate is just pure light, love, energy. So there's nothing that needs to be distorted, manipulative, or hidden. But when you're dealing with somebody that's still in the lower centers of their existence and their consciousness in the 3rd dimension, and they want to hide those things, that's where there can be a little bit of uneasiness and conflict between two beings. And the reason essentially I'm making this video is so that if you are experiencing these things, like if you are experiencing closeness to somebody's auric field, so that electromagnetic field that we all have emanating from our bodies, if you're close enough to somebody's auric field, and I mean, this can be done at a distance as well, but usually when you're starting to assimilate some of these sort of sixth sense properties to your beingness, you will get this telepathy with other beings, other entities, other humans. And it's very cool, and it's intermittent at first. Sometimes you'll just get flashes or a little bit of dialogue between two minds, and then you go, oh, whoa, that was weird. That was, you'll identify that those were not your thoughts. Those were definitely the thoughts of that other person. And it might even creep you out a little bit. And then you have to kind of, okay, so this is actually happening. I'm actually being able to communicate telepathically with this person. And sometimes you'll be with another person that will also be in realization of this telepathic communication. So sometimes you and that other person will be able to acknowledge, okay, yes, we can communicate telepathically, and this is cool, and I like this. And this is part of the reason you've got to watch your internal dialogue and why we are learning this. Because if you are this graceful creature on the outside, but you have a total crazy potty mouth internally in your dialogue, and then all of a sudden the veil lifts a little bit and everybody can see what's emanating from, you know, your inner consciousness, you might not want that, or you might want to clean up that vibration, because telepathic communication is definitely coming. It will happen to the majority of people on Earth as we all ascend, as we all raise our vibrational frequency. And it has beautiful benefits in the sense that a lot of the distortion in the third dimension can only exist due to the level of deception here. You know, like things like scams, things like people that are, you know, misrepresenting themselves to hurt you, or, you know, having things behind you, betraying you. Like those things cannot happen in the upper dimensions because you can see right through them, and they just can't move very far with those type of intentions. So it's actually a beautiful thing. It's actually a really cool thing that this is starting to happen with our planet. It just means that, again, the frequency has raised to a certain bandwidth that we can now have some of these really beautiful forms of communication. And it actually really simplifies communication as well, which is cool, because words and dialogue can be very exhausting, right? You're always trying to think of like language and how to do this and how to say it properly and tonalities. And there's a lot that goes into actually speaking and language. And when it's just a transference of telepathic thought forms emanating from you, it's kind of also an instant exchange, right? And there's a lot that can come through when you're using telepathic communication. It can be very beautiful, instant, all-encompassing, and a very, very safe feeling communication, because the emanation of it is this solid knowing between two beings or multiple beings, and it's just solid in the moment and it's done. It doesn't take a lot of time. So it really drains you a lot less. Like, have you ever been in a conversation with like 4 or 5 people and it's just like nobody is listening and it's very choppy and the message isn't getting through, and you have egos everywhere, and it's draining, it's frustrating. You just feel like you are just done with the conversation. And when you get done with the conversation, you know, whether it is in business or whether it is, you know, in friend groups or family groups, and you just almost want to lay down because it's just a lot of work having these type of conversations. The nice thing about once we move into that 4th and 5th dimensional reality is that communication is very gentle. Its purpose is also different. Communication's purpose in these higher realms is completely different than the information exchange where we are in the 3rd dimension. And I want to explain that. In these higher realms, a lot of the purposefulness or what you will experience as you move into these higher dimensions is that existence, and the catalyst for existence is service, so helping others, healing others, joy, beauty, creation, so music, art, making beautiful things, having beautiful experiences, ever expanding aspects of creation and the creation process. So there's none of the lower distortions. So there's not competition, there's not like capitalism or control mechanism where, you know, you have one group controlling another group. That just doesn't happen in these upper realms. Everybody is collectively working for these common goals of just the betterment of everything. All beings are healing. All of the beings that reside in these upper dimensions wish for wholeness for all others. Consciousness is very connected, very interconnected. So the output of this collective consciousness is highly spiritual and very beautiful and very safe. So the peace that you feel in these upper dimensions is like nothing you've probably experienced as of yet in terms of your outward manifestation. And that is, again, when we talk about these concepts of heaven, okay, what heaven might be like, that's when we're talking about these upper kingdoms, okay? And they also go on infinitely. So it's not like there's one heaven. There's upper layers of consciousness that go on and on, these octaves of conscious creation. And there is definitely, from where we reside on our three-dimensional planetary plane right now, there are higher consciousness levels, octaves, whatever you want to call them, that we can't even conceive of. Because again, we are in a three-dimensional body. Our brain, the two hemispheres of our brain, and everything by which we filter our reality through. So we see the colors, we have the five senses, we have the body, this is the human suit that we put on that streams consciousness through it so that we can have an experience, a virtual kind of experience, which is very cool, but it prevents us from perceiving those upper kingdoms or upper realms. And that's the purpose. It would be too much information. It would just be such an expansion of what we can grasp right now. Our bodies would not be able to physically handle it. So it would just be like way too much. But again, we are raising our collective vibration. We're moving into the fourth and fifth dimensional realities. Once you move into this energy or this frequency, then definitely you can tap into higher realms once you've gotten yourself to again, the fifth dimension. Other doorways start opening up for you, okay? But you certainly cannot even begin to conceive of them in the third dimension. And I can only talk about this again because really kind of from the human standpoint, strange events have happened to me my entire life that were very out of body experiences. I know them to be true because I experienced them. I know that I am a very grounded, logical, intellectual mind. So for a long time, I tried to discount them or just say, there's no point in talking about these things. But as more and more things within my own body have been opening up, and the range of experiences that I'm having have been opening up, even from a very in my body experience, I've realized the validity of all of these other events and what their purpose was in teaching me about those higher realms of existence. So I want to round out this video because again, it doesn't need to be too wordy or too long, but if anything, it should excite you. this element of sense that essentially human beings are evolving into. This is something that is coming back into our reality, this telepathic communication. Things like remote viewing, things like being able to see things from, miles away and be actually able to tap into a situation that's going on. All of these things have been studied heavily by multiple different governments. These are real things. We know that people can pull, information from the ether, essentially, in terms of having psychic gifts. Myself, I definitely think that I could do that if I wanted to do that. I don't want to. I don't see any purpose in knowing other people's business or information, and so I don't send my consciousness in that direction, and it's certainly not part of my life path to do that. I'm here primarily to build what I'm here to build in terms of good infrastructure, and whether it be the schools, whether it be programs for young people, whatever it is. I know what I'm here to build, and I love what I'm building, and I'm very happy and honored to be able to do these things. And I'm here to teach. I'm here to give the knowledge that I have, and hopefully it will help anybody that's out there as they start to assimilate these gifts, or as these gifts start to open up, within their own body system, then they can understand what's going on. It won't freak them out. They won't feel like there's something weird about them. They won't have to go on some sort of pharmaceutical medication because all of a sudden they can read other people's thoughts. Because again, you have to understand that for people that haven't had this experience, talking this way would be very uncomfortable for them. And their first response is, okay, my brother or my sister, my uncle is going insane. But again, and you might even ask those questions of yourself, am I losing it? But for me, because I've had these experiences my entire life, and I've also had them come and go, sometimes this ability is there, and then sometimes it quiets itself. And it usually happens, right when I need it, and then it kind of quiets itself when I need to go back to work and really go back into the third dimension and get some stuff done. So I've seen a direct correlation between spirit and my divine guidance, and when I need to utilize these things and when I don't. And there's certainly nothing to be afraid of or scared of. And it is a really beautiful experience when you can tap into this type of communication that is nonverbal, and it really builds a lot of bonds with others too. Like if somebody else is able to telepathically communicate with you, it brings a peace to both individuals, and especially if you get a group that is really, really good at this telepathic communication between the group, it builds such a strong soul bond. And those souls that you can communicate, and normally when I'm doing this, because I'm going to get this video wrapped up, but it's a lot of light and love that I'm sending. It's sending my heart, it's sending peace, it's sending beautiful messages to these people that might be struggling, or maybe they're having a beautiful day, something to ground them, but just this energy of connection, so that these people that are in my inner circle know how deeply I support them, how deeply I care for them, and that I will always be there to ground them and to be part of this incarnation with them. It's like an interconnection that keeps one's consciousness level, safe, and feeling loved. And also with this, I mean, you can telepathically communicate distortion and negativity. I've never done this, but I know it's possible. That's not the proper use of it. It's very low vibrational, and certainly if somebody is doing that, you can block it. I mean, very, very easily. You can immediately put up an energy field to that, and it just bounces right back to them, and then they have their own negativity. So don't be afraid that people are communicating negative thought forms to you. Some people call it the evil eye or whatever you want to call it, but you have to understand that, again, telepathy on this level, so a lower distorted type of telepathy that is meant to harm or hurt others, it's not high vibrational, and therefore it's not grounded, and there's not very much cohesion in it. So it can affect you. It can affect your energy field if you're unaware of it. But really all you have to do is take your own electromagnetic field, your auric field, and send out a tremendous amount of heart space energy, light, love, just really increase the power output in terms of what you are emanating, and set the intention that nothing in terms of distortion can get through your auric field, and it just simply can't. So that's a knowing. Once you have that knowing, you have the ability to block any of that, and the end of story. So you don't really, there's nothing more to talk about with that. You just kind of do that and carry on with your day. And it's fun. It's fun that we're going through this transformation right now in human history. And it's certainly not anything that wasn't like pre-warned to us or pre-told. Many religions talk about this specific time in terms of Earth's transition. We know that many cultures were teaching about this particular time in history. So again, we've been given the information that this was coming, and it's a good thing. It's an expansion of consciousness, and consciousness can only expand when it is moving up in its vibratory complex, and it can only move up when it's moving towards the love and the light. So our evolution, our expansion is a beautiful, blissful experience. It is so fun. It's going to be, it is such an exciting experience. So nothing that I want to teach, or nothing I'm teaching, do I want to scare you with in any way. Because again, all it means is less distortion, more beautiful, simplistic communication, very safe and loving communication, and a very high degree of interconnectedness at a depth that is for the soul. So it's soul frequency connecting to soul frequency, and emanating this love and this support, and then collectively creating a more beautiful expression of the manifestation of Earth life, if that makes sense. But anyways, I'm gonna cut this video now because I've said everything I really want to say about telepathy and moving into those fourth and fifth dimensional spaces. And again, spaces, I don't want, it's not like you're gonna lift off the Earth. It's not like you're going to go to a different planet. That's not how it works. It just means everything around you. So everything you see with your eyes and all of the five senses, it's actually vibrating at a higher level. And so when it's vibrating at a higher level, the expression and experience of it will appear to be more radiant, more beautiful, more peaceful, more blissful. Okay? What drops away is the lower emotional centers and experiences, and distortion of even what you're seeing in your reality. So nature becomes brighter, colors become brighter. The way that you can love people becomes a more beautiful expression. I will explain this in more detail in another video because it's very, very cool, and I've had specific experiences being in those dimensions while on Earth, and so I can really speak to how it feels, but I'm not going to do that in this particular video. So anyways, have a great weekend, and I'm telepathically communicating a lot of light and love and happiness and hope to everybody out there.